I really thought I was going to get more of an effort from the Mavericks last night. Just put it that
It
way.
was bad.
I thought I was going to get a little bit more from them. That's why it's a 7-game series. That's why they play first to 4, best to 7.
Whether you lose by 1 or 30, a loss is a loss. So maybe getting kicked in the pants a little bit will wake them up, and they can at least split the first 2 games. But
you think Boston wasn't hearing people say, "Well, they didn't beat anybody. Everybody they beat was hurt." Yeah, they really took it to Dallas yesterday. Good Friday afternoon, everybody. On June 7th, 2024. This is, of course, the Southside Beat, as we are 3 p.m. Eastern every Monday through Friday, right here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. We'll talk a little leftovers from OTAs, but I also think, and I just thought of this like right before we started the show, we should probably take some questions today. It'd be a good day to do that.
Yeah.
Take some Q&A.
Football Friday.
Feel good Friday. Really nice summer day Friday. We hope you all are enjoying it.
We have dates for training camp now, too. Players report on July 24th. First practice is the next day. First practice in pads is July 30th, which is my wife and I's anniversary. And then the Friday Night Lights practice is on my birthday, August 2nd. So, I mean, it's going to be me getting up there and hitting the ground running.
What better way to spend your birthday than at Latrobe Memorial? What is it? Latrobe Memorial, Latrobe Senior High School, whatever it is. Yeah. Jay Moods, I couldn't live in Phoenix. Jay Moods says it's so hot in Phoenix. I couldn't live there. I was in Phoenix last year for the Pirates and Diamondbacks series. And I remember, and I'll never forget this, the mist they spray on the sidewalk so you don't die of heat exhaustion as you walk from point A to point B. That's how Phoenix rolls. I did enjoy the food, though. Woo! The food out there was unbelievable.
Arizona's very good. The couple of times I had to cover spring training out in Arizona, I was all the way up in Surprise, and there's a sports bar there called Booties, and yes, it's a sports bar. I had to convince my wife a few times that it was a sports bar, and like a lot, similar to a Permanis or something like that, but really, really good wings, phenomenal food. Always enjoyed going there. They always had, what was it, trivia night every Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
And it was always a lot of fun for all the beat writers to get there and to, test our mettle against the locals. And yeah, it was fun. But yeah, Arizona is just too hot. Thankfully, all the times I've had to go have been February or March for either spring training or owners meetings. So, but
yeah, I don't want to be in Phoenix again in July. Never again.
No, not fun.
I'm good. Today, like I said, is a good day for Q&A for those that are live in the chat here, and from those that are listening, I guess, after in the recorded version, in the audio only, or watching this on playback in YouTube. Usually on a Friday, time to time, Chris and I will do this where we fire up a Q&A, live Q&A, and you all could come in on the live stream on the chat and ask questions about the Steelers. And today's one of the days to do it because, number one, OTAs just wrapped up and we're on to minicamp, mandatory minicamp, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on the south side. But also because, quite honestly, nothing's really going on today. Everybody pretty much is home now, at least those that chose to do so for the extended weekend before they get back here, Monday or Sunday, whenever it is for meetings. So not much going on from a anything standpoint with the team. And to be frank, there's 3 more days of football activity before this extended period of a dead period between, the mid-June and in late July when everybody gets to training camp. So it's going to be about 5 weeks of nothing, literally nothing between the time next Friday arrives when we get here a week from today and the end of July when training camp starts. So that's literally it. There's really nothing going on today. You might have seen I posted a video here on the YouTube channel on DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers of just 90 seconds of them doing ball security drills yesterday. Like we talked about yesterday with the football in shorts, with the OTA periods, the voluntary part, nothing insane really happens. But at the same time, it's getting back into football shape, getting back into the swing of things, getting to meet new teammates and getting used to kind of what the vibe of this 2024 team is going to be.
Hey, if you guys are having any technical difficulties on YouTube, by the way, I'm seeing on our end that there's nobody watching right now. I mean, we have people in the chat right now, but it seems to be a little lackluster than what it normally is. And like I said, I'm showing a big old goose egg in live view. So if you're having technical difficulties, please let us know.
Yeah.
We don't want to, we might just have to
we don't want to speak to nobody.
Well, we might have to end this one and then completely start a new one. Like I don't know. So
as William says, maybe give a refresh. Maybe give a refresh real quick. We'll come right back if you do that.
Interesting. So
it's
that time in between minicamp and training camp, I've said it before. It is the dead, completely dead. Like that's when players are getting married. That's when executives are. That's when executives are going on vacation. Coaches are going on vacation. It's the calm before the storm, before training camp. Because once training camp hits, once they report that for the Steelers, that July 24th, they report they're not stopping until, for them, they hope, the second Sunday of February.
I was going to say mid-January, early February.
Most likely mid to late January. But either way, for the next several months, they don't stop. So it is definitely the calm before the storm.
Yeah, it's go time here pretty soon in official capacity. But that does also begin coming up on Tuesday with mandatory minicamp. Now, obviously, there are some things to keep an eye on. Number one being Cam Hayward, number two being Najee Harris. Also looking at the full scope of, seeing, George Pickens has been there, but seeing like George Pickens meshing with everybody on the offense and seeing everybody on the defense together again. And honestly, having another week of Cam Sutton in the building and how that affects the defense. We talked about, of course, Cam Sutton returning yesterday. We talked yesterday about Cam Sutton returning. And of course, like there's still a lot for this team to take care of between now and by the time they get to Latrobe. But next week, the difference is literally everybody has to be there. And by the way, the practices run a little bit longer. They're, I think, 2 hours and 15 minutes next week each.
Oh, yeah.
At least Tuesday and Wednesday. And then I think Thursday is like an hour and a half. So, they're going to run a little bit long. Bobby says Tigers hat. I'm wearing a Detroit Tigers hat. Story behind this hat. Number one, I used to live in Toledo, Ohio, which is like an hour south of Detroit. So I spent a little bit of time up there. I bought this hat. It was Tigers Guardians and the Guardians, Tristan McKenzie, who I covered real closely when I was covering minor league baseball. Great kid, smart kid, one of the smartest athletes I've ever interviewed. He said if he wasn't going to be a pitcher, and he was drafted like second round by Cleveland, he was going to be an astronomer. Like he wanted to work for NASA. Like he's insanely wicked smart. So I bought this hat on the day he took a no-hitter into the ninth inning at Comerica Park and then lost it. But he won the game, so that's good for him. Lyle, member for 13 months. Thank you very much for that continued patronage. That's awesome. All right, let's do this. Question from Rick. Might they not be given extensions because they think they might have to pay a quarterback next year? And this, I'm assuming, is an extension with respect to players and not with respect to Mike Tomlin, because that still has to get taken care of. That's still an item that's kind of in the back of everyone's mind right now. It certainly isn't something that's being upfront discussed. And I'm 99.9% sure that if not this week, he'll get asked it at training camp about the contract extension or about talks about it or whatever. So will Amar Khan. So why are they not giving extensions right now? Now, I think this also might be, I also think this might pertain to Cam Hayward, but paying the quarterback next year certainly has something to do with it, but also they could just arrange money in different ways if they want to next year. Depends on how they want to allocate it.
No, I mean, extensions are typically given out usually a little bit closer to training camp or even during training camp. Every now and then you get an extension done earlier in the off season before training camp starts. I think Minka was done during OTAs or minicamp around that time. So it can happen now, but it typically doesn't happen until later, especially when you talk about the higher profile players. With Deontay Johnson, that happened into training camp. TJ Watt, it happened real late. in the process. So, typically the higher the profile player, the longer it takes. When it comes to Cam Hayward, it could be just because, if he is, if he remains steadfast that he's going to be paid as a top 5 defensive lineman, this could be an extension talk that takes a while, that, bleeds over into training camp. I'm not, each contract situation is different. And so, and you could talk about the same thing with Najee Harris, because that's an extension. Now, I've been told that first off, there's real potential for it with Najee, and that probably will. I was told during the summer, so I would assume that those type of talks won't. If they haven't begun already, they probably won't begin until maybe after minicamp's over, or maybe even by the time they report for training camp. So those typically don't happen until later. Like I said, every now and then one gets done a little earlier, but that's usually a little bit later on in the summer.
I think Alex Highsmith's extension last year was done like the weekend before training camp started.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I think the press conference was actually held the Monday before everybody broke for Latrobe, if I remember correctly last year. So yeah, these things tend to happen a little bit later than you might think. Damon asks, based on the pieces the Steelers have acquired in the secondary, what can we expect from Minka this season? I think you can definitely expect. Well, first off, Minka has to be healthy. He wasn't healthy last year, but also I think you can expect like what we're used to seeing from Minka in years past, with the exception of last year. Like, I think last year was such a different case because everybody on the defense got hurt in some capacity, it felt like, or at least certainly the inside linebackers, and then of course the safeties, and then you had KZ's suspension. Like, Minka had to be used and kind of anchored down back in the back end of the defense because there were so many injuries, and you couldn't really like move him around to let him do that. He had to stay in the back because there were so many injuries at his position. So what I think you're going to see right now, and I think the additions of Elliott and certainly drafting Ryan Watts, I think the additions back in the secondary are also going to allow Minka to do what we're used to seeing him do, which is play corner, play slot, play nickel, play deep, play in that 3 safety look they like to do. Like, I think this year, let me rephrase that. I think last year was kind of a red herring for Minka, and I think that's not really indicative of what kind of player he actually is. It's kind of funny too, like when you watch Minka practice, even just in those like day-to-day practices on the south side, you could tell he just does things differently than everybody else. Like, you can tell how special of a ball player he actually is. Like, I think that Minka is going to have a really good bounce back season, and that's because I think everything else around him is going to be shored up.
I'll just answer it as simply as I possibly can. The pieces they've acquired in the secondary will let Minka be Minka.
Sure.
It's just it's that simple. Having Cam Sutton in the slot definitely shores up that position. Having Deshaun Elliott, who does everything solid, nothing great, but nothing bad. Really solid player all the way around, especially as a tackler. He can play, in the box. He can play, further back. Demonte Casey can, obviously, he's probably best suited playing that traditional, playing, further back at, in the, traditional safety position. Just let Minka be Minka. And that's what these pieces are going to be doing. And that's what the Steelers need. They need Minka to be freed up to go essentially be the ball hawk that he is. Whenever they've had to have him, maybe play in certain positions where he's had to help out on tackling a little bit more, he haven't seen him, be the ball hawk that he can be. I think about the 21 season, think about last season. Now, last season he was also injured, but like the 21 season, you didn't see a lot of the playmaking on the ball that we had seen when he was acquired. But man, he racked up the tackles because he's a good tackling safety. But it'll just let him just let Minka be Minka. That's and the Steelers defense will be at their best whenever TJ is doing his thing and Minka's doing his thing.
Mm-hmm. William asks, does the money used not this year roll over? I'm going to defer that one to Chris because I think you have just being honest, I think you have a better understanding of how the salary cap works than I do. So I'll defer that one to you.
So there is, I don't know the exact, if you're allowed to use any unused cap space, but you are allowed to, I believe the team has to notify the league either prior to the final regular season game of an amount that they're going to roll over. Because I think the team can decide if they're allowed to use any unused cap space. I think they have to actually give a number to the league and then have that be what they roll over. But yes, you can roll over some unused cap, at least some, maybe more. I'm not exactly sure of that. The NFL salary cap is so complicated with certain things, but I know for a fact they can, because if you go, like, for example, if I were to go to Spot Track right now and hold on, let me pull that up real quick. Spot Track, and you would go to, oh shoot, man. My S key isn't working. This 2014 MacBook. Like if you were to go there right now and look at their salary cap situation, I'm pulling it up. Sorry, slow computer. And you go down to the bottom here and you go 2024 cap totals. The 2024 salary cap is $255.4 million. The Steelers rolled over $2.34 million from last year. So their actual salary cap this year is $257.7 million. Because of what they rolled over. So you can roll over at least some, if not more. But yes, you can. Long answer short. Yes, you can roll over salary cap. I just don't know exactly how much. I would be shocked if the Steelers go into the season with $18 million in cap space like they have now.
I'll put it there's no way they're going to find a way to spend that.
Yeah, it'll be used one way or another, and maybe this is 1 year in which they don't, and they can roll over a bunch into next year, and maybe that's one way that they help pay for a quarterback or whatever, or maybe that's the way that they help pay for a receiver that they possibly trade for. I don't know, but yes, they can roll over cap space.
Yeah, I'll get this one out of the way from Robert. Are you going to watch the UFL playoffs?
No, probably not.
No, to be honest, I have better things to do.
I've been catching highlights, but no, I've got work to do. And then I'm also trying to sell a house because I have to be up there before July 24th. Mm-hmm. So
I'm not. To be honest, I don't want to. I just don't want to.
I like football, and I have, it's funny because like whenever I was covering baseball and you're really plugged into the sport and you're in the middle of the winter, there's not really baseball to watch because like, I'm sure there's a way to watch like winter ball, like in the Dominican and stuff.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, but you can either watch that or you can watch baseball movies. And so there's like a couple of different ways that you can get your baseball fix. It's the same thing during football season, or like for football is like the football off season is long. So it's like, how do you get your football fix? You can watch live football with the spring football leagues, or you can try to watch football movies. For example, just a few nights ago, I watched Remember the Titans again because it's arguably the best football movie ever. So
great movie. That's right.
I can always go back and watch it.
That's right. It's a great movie. But no, I will not be watching the UFL. Chris Chin asks, do you think we franchise tag players instead of extending them so the Steelers can kind of see how they do in this new offense, but not commit long-term just in case? Like, I think there are many reasons to utilize the franchise tag. Like, number one, I think the obvious one, in the case of T. Higgins, for example, out in Cincinnati, is they can't come to terms on a long-term deal. So this is kind of the ticket, so to speak, that T. Higgins will get paid. It's almost like an arbitrary, like arbitration in baseball in a way. And here's the market price. Here's the market tag. Here's what you'll make this season off of market value. And then that also buys the team some time for whatever. Now, in the Steelers case, like using the franchise tag, did they use the franchise tag? No, they didn't. They didn't use franchise tag. Huh?
They have not franchised anybody. I think the last guy that was franchised, I'm trying to remember the last guy they franchised. Was it Bud Dupree?
Could have been. I'm unsure.
Maybe.
I'm unsure.
I'm not even sure the last time they even franchise tagged somebody. It's been a while. Obviously,
So
they tried to franchise tag Le'Veon Bell, but
that didn't work. So what was I going with this? Anyway, like put it in this way: they're not going to franchise tag Justin Fields. Like he had his rookie like 5th-year option, which essentially works like a franchise tag.
it's a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper, but the
Lot
Steelers could have picked that up. Is the point, and they didn't. So now Justin Fields is going into his free agent year. Let's say the Bengals didn't do what they did to T. Higgins, he'd be going into free agency next year. Like,
Wow.
at the end of this year. So like, it just kind of is case by case. You can certainly do it for that. You could franchise tag somebody to see how they do, like with this 1 year here, and if they stink or it's not for them, then trade them or cut them at the end of the year. Like, it's all case by case, I think, with respect to the franchise tag.
I think if the Steelers were seriously considering franchise tagging anybody, like, for example, I understand like Cam Hayward is like the main extension talk guy right now.
Yeah. Jaylen Warren as well.
Right, but
that might be a better example of it.
No, not even because Jalen's going to be a restricted free agent. They still have his rights.
True.
So any team that makes him an offer, the Steelers can match it. Najee Harris, if you're going to if they were really seriously considering giving him a franchise tag, they might as well have just picked up his 5th-year option because it would have been a lot cheaper than what the franchise tag is going to be.
That's right.
So I think the franchise tag is something that I think it's something teams prefer not to use. And I think that's why you're seeing the Steelers use it less and less. I think, and I'm seeing some people confirm it for me. Bud Dupree was the last player they slapped with the franchise tag. I think the last 2 they did it with was Bud and then Bell, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so you saw how that went down with Le'Veon. And now, if I'm not mistaken, did he actually play 1 year on the franchise tag and then they tried to do it again? And then that's whenever everything went down, if I'm not mistaken, because he was a 2nd-round pick. So if he played 5 seasons for the Steelers, that means he had to have played 1 year under the franchise tag because like I said, he was a 2nd-round pick. So it would have only been a 4-year deal with that and, no ability to do a 5th-year option because he wasn't a 1st-round pick. So I think if I'm not mistaken, he played 1 year under the franchise tag and they tried to do it again while they were also trying to negotiate a long-term deal. And that's when everything went to hell.
I think you're right.
But the Steelers haven't. I mean, I think it's been Bell and then it's been Dupree and then that's it. So it's something that teams don't want to have to use unless they really, really have a player that they want to keep and possibly want to assign to an extension. And it's just a way to make sure that they stay. Right. And because how often are you going to have another Le'Veon Bell situation happen? Like even Le'Veon Bell is coming out now and saying how much he regrets how that went down. Right.
Yep.
So I think that's just it's a way that teams, it's a measure of last resort, I think is the best way to describe it when it comes to keeping a player's rights while also trying to possibly, sign them to a long-term deal. Possibly.
Good correction from Jay Smith. Higgins would have been a free agent this season. That's correct. I had it a little mixed up there, but that's okay.
Because I think they picked up his 5th-year option, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't cover the Bengals.
Robert says, "What do you think of Dan Hurley?" I think he should weigh his options carefully. That's what I think of Dan Hurley. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think he should weigh his options carefully. Now, pros and cons. Pros, he's going for a 3-peat at UConn. For those that don't know, Dan Hurley is the head men's basketball coach at UConn, who is reportedly the top candidate for the Lakers job in the NBA. Mm-hmm. At the same time, does he want to coach LeBron James? That's always an option. That's always a thing. But also, he's going for a 3-peat at UConn and has a really good team coming back. So we'll see. I think he's phenomenal, though. I think he's very clearly, obviously basketball lifer. I think he's the best coach in college basketball, at least right now. I think he's really built something for himself. And now he kind of has, the gold option and the other gold option. He has 2 different premium packages here right in front of him that he could choose. And He certainly has put himself in a good spot. So I'll leave it at that. What do I think about also the Dallas Mavericks losing to Boston? Like, man, I wish I saw more of Dallas last night since we're talking basketball. Jay Smith says Hurley better stay at UConn. I think that's the smart thing to do. But at the same time, I think the Lakers, if they were smart, would throw the Brinks truck and the Brinks company at him. I think that'd be wise for the Lakers to do. I think that's a guy that's worth overpaying for coaches.
Here,
So
that's Biad has a I'm going to try to go through this as slowly as I can. At this time last year, what was the team's weakness and potential weaknesses, and what ended up being the weaknesses by the end of the year, and what are the weaknesses, potential weaknesses now? So last year, I'm trying to remember. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like inside linebacker was thought to be a shorter position because of the signing of, the signings of Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts.
and
Not that it
Alexander.
was not, and then right ahead of training camp they signed Quan Alexander. So that seemed to be a position that was locked up, or not locked, shored up, and then by season's end, because of injuries, it was decimated, and it was a gigantic need again. I don't remember there being a lot of major weaknesses around this time last year, because again, they had seemed to tackle just about every weakness on the roster, right? Like, I'm trying to remember of any glaring weaknesses that they possibly had at this time last year. Damon says like quarterback and O-line were the weaknesses. I mean, quarterback, but this was before we knew that Kenny Pickett wasn't going to be good in year two, and there was still intrigue there especially because of the way Kenny ended his rookie season, right? He ended it on a positive note. The team ended on a big high in 2022. They were 7-2 down the stretch. Kenny played really well. He wasn't turning the ball over. They weren't scoring a lot of points, but he wasn't being careless with the football, and there was at least intrigue that Kenny could take another step in year two. Obviously, we're looking with completely different eyes now because we know what happened.
I think I think like there's no regret on that thought on Kenny either, by the way. It was very reasonable
pick after a rookie season.
It was very reasonable to expect what we expected out of Kenny last year. Now, maybe once he had that red hot preseason, we took things up a notch, and maybe that was the notch that was too far. Mm-hmm. But I think the expectations around Kenny Pickett last year were very reasonable.
Yeah, I was expecting more, not based off of what we saw in preseason, but I was expecting a nice jump in year two. Not anything where Kenny was going to become top 10 quarterback or even top 15 quarterback or anything like that, but efficient guy who could help move the football down the field. Didn't turn the ball over a lot, but maybe threw for 20 touchdowns. We didn't see that. Right. Like it was not. Rick says the main weakness had a dumb hat and hid by himself in a room down the hall.
He's right. He's right. I mean, they're talking about Matt Canada. He's right.
Right. So, but right now, I would say the biggest weakness on the team is still wide receiver. The one good thing that I can say of the situation that they're in now with receiver, because as this has continually gone on, the Steelers haven't made a move to get a second receiver. You continue to mull over all of the options here, and you're like, okay, but at least they have a lot of options. Like maybe just one of these guys just sticks. Maybe of all these guys they're throwing at a dartboard blind, one of them is a bullseye, or one of them's a triple 20, or whatever you want to say. I don't play darts. I don't know all the scores. So
triple 20 is the highest. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Okay, so I'm not a dart guy. So
yeah, don't shoot for bullseye. Shoot for triple 20. That's the highest score you can get on one throw.
How much is a bullseye worth?
50. Triple 20, 60. Most people don't realize that. They think, oh, bullseye, middle of the board. No, triple 20 is the highest score.
There's just the only reason I even know what a triple 20 is because of Ted Lasso.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If anybody's seen the dart scene from Ted Lasso or even watched Ted Lasso, like it's one of the best scenes in the entire show. But yeah, so that's even the only reason I'm not a dart player whatsoever. But seriously though,
I'll throw some darts with a beer in my hand. Sure.
But Jax brings up the good point when it comes to receiver is that if they don't get another guy, and we've said it before, and he brings up the same point that we've stated here, and it's a very, very valid one. If Pickens gets hurt, there is a huge drop off at receiver. Like if you're expecting Calvin Austin or Van Jefferson or even Roman Wilson to be your number one receiver, that is
unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic. I think they're high on Calvin Austin. As you might have read in DK's Friday Insider today. Mm-hmm. I also think you're going to see a lot more Pat Freiermuth outside. I'll just leave it at that. I think you're going to see a lot more of him outside than you saw him last year and years past.
Like outside or in the slot?
I think both, actually. I think you're going to see a lot of them in the slot, particularly.
Well, I don't think you'd have to go that much more to say, oh, Pat Freiermuth is going to be lined up outside because, like, shoot, man, I can bring up his snap counts right now, and like if he did it 5 times last year and he does it 8 times this year.
All right, I mean,
but I know what you're saying. I know.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
I think perception. How about perception-wise? We're going to be like, oh, Pat Freiermuth's out there a lot more. Like I think we're going to kind of have that light bulb come on. All right, I have to get out of here. I have an appointment to hit at 4, so I think that's going to do it for us today here on the Southside Beat on a football Friday, a feel-good Friday, a fantastic Friday. Use whatever superlative you want. Remember, you can find this podcast where all podcasts are found. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. Just please. There's one thing you do for us. It's that you like the episode, you click share, you click subscribe if you haven't. That helps us get to the top of the algorithm, to the top of the page of people that haven't seen this program or the Ramon Foster show for that matter. And then they subscribe. And then friends of theirs subscribe, and then friends of their friends subscribe. And we build the community up, and we build the viewership up, and maybe we get some Southside Beat baseball caps, as people have been asking about. You never know. You never know. That's how this works. So that's my proposal. That's the deal right there. We appreciate you all. We love you all. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, everybody. He's Chris. I'm Corey. This has been the Southside Beat. Cheers, everybody. Have a great day.